Hi there. These comments are for SK. I am Michael from OTC, online TOEFLcourse.com. And how are you doing today? I'm getting ready to listen to your speaking practice test. So I actually have the rubrics right in front of me so I can kind of see what's going on. And I'm listening to your practice test right here. So, all right, let's go. So let's listen to the whole thing one time. I won't make any comments at all. And then the second time, I will listen to it.
In the lecture, the professor elaborated on a specific example to explain the concept of carrying capacity. The greatest number of animals or species a habitat can support is called carrying capacity, and it is subject to availability of resources. To begin with, red and black moths feed on ragwort plants to grow. In one year, the ragwort plants were available in a large amount, and so the population of these moths were also high. But in the next year, the rainfall was limited, so the ragwort plants didn't grow much. As a result, the population of these moths went down. This also affected their reproduction systems because the female didn't lay much eggs. This indicates the shift in resources, and this is carrying capacity. However, the next year, because of adequate rainfall, everything became normal. In the lecture,
Okay? So I was looking at the rubrics here. Yeah, it's tough. Speech is generally clear, fluid, and sustained. It may include minor lapses or minor difficulties with pronunciation and intonation. Here, speech is generally clear with some fluidity of expression, but exhibits. I think some of the difficulties are a little bit more than minor. That's the problem. There's a few words in there I'm not getting 100% of what you're saying. So that's the problem. So I see your score between 3.0 and 3.5. So you're looking probably between about 23 and 25 points out of 30. Let's listen to it one more time. I'll point out every word that's unclear.
in the lecture, the professor elaborated on a specific example
That one word, are you saying elaborates? Elaborates.
to explain the concept of carrying capacity. The greatest number of animals or species.
I wouldn't even do that. I would talk about the reading first, even though it might ask you about what's in the lecture. Say the reading passage discusses a concept called carrying capacity, and the speaker in the lecture gives an example to further expand on that idea. So to me, then it makes sense to address the reading passage. Talk about what's in the reading passage, the most important points. Then you can transition over to the lecture and talk about what's in
A
that.
habitat can support is called carrying capacity, and it is subject to availability of resources.
Then say availability. You need to pronounce the V. Availability of resources.
To begin with, red and
Now, I'm not sure what you just said there. Hold on.
the greatest number of animals or species a habitat can support is called carrying capacity, and it is subject to availability of resources. To begin with,
Right there. That, I'm not sure. 14 to 15 seconds. Anybody at YouTube, if you know what he said right there, put it in the comments. Remember, I'm 54 years old. My hearing's not perfect, but I can't quite get what that is.
red and black moths feed on ragwort plants to
And that one word there, I'm not sure about.
capacity, and it is subject to availability of resources. To begin with, red and black moths feed on ragwort plants
And that what kinds of plants? I'm not exactly sure the word that you're saying there. I'm having a little bit of trouble with that.
to grow. In one year, the ragwort plants were available in a large amount, and
Now you're having some pacing issues. You have what I call some fluidity of expression, but you're kind of disrupting part of your response with some pauses where I wouldn't pause. I would probably keep going. Pause after four or five stress
so
words.
the population of these moths were also high.
The population of these moths.
feed on ragwort plants to grow. In 1 year, the ragwort plants were available in a large amount, and so the
They were available in a large number, not amount. So if you're talking about the number of plants or insects, I would say the number of plants or the number of insects.
population of these moths were also high. But in the next year, the rainfall was limited.
But the next year, because of limited rainfall, the professor explains, so you can put more voice markers in there also to acknowledge, because we have to separate the two sources. We have three voices in here. Let's think about it for a minute. We have the author from the reading passage, that's voice number one. Voice number two is the speaker in the lecture, and then you're the third voice. Now, the only way you're going to be neutral, right? The only way to stay neutral and not create what we call a personal experience or a subjective response is you acknowledge the information as having come from one of those two sources. So you can do a little bit better with your voice markers also.
So the ragwort plants didn't grow much. As a result, the population of these moths went down. This also
Also, the population of these moths decreased because of the limited rainfall.
affected their reproduction systems because the female didn't lay much eggs. This indicates the shift in resources, and this is carrying capacity.
So this indicates a shift in resources, which illustrates the idea or illustrates carrying capacity, which is mentioned in the reading. So at the very end, you had those two short sentences there. That shows a little bit more basic grammar. The more I listen to it, the lower your score is going to be. So I'm going to actually put you at 22 to 23 points out of 30. There are some problems in there. I think you can even improve with your topic development. So in my online course, go to the section, the speaking, the 7th step of my course, and go where you see integrated speaking lessons. I want you to look at TOEFL integrated speaking strategies, lesson number 1. See if you can figure out a little bit better way to outline your ideas. Now, I also know that you're doing a lot of pronunciation practice. Keep doing that. I think that's going to be very important for you. All right, and thank you for doing this practice test. So if you go back over to the rubric here, right, if we take a look at it, give me a quick second here. Let me see. Yeah, if I take a look at where it says 3, you're stuck in there. You're going to have to you have to do something different, I think, in order to get better. So I think where it says speech is generally clear, yes, you have some fluidity of expression, right? But you have minor difficulties with pronunciation. For example, when you're describing the name of the plant, I wasn't quite sure what you were talking about. There were a few other words in there I couldn't quite hear. You can keep working, I think, on your tone and your pacing. And I think also the response is sustained contain relevant information required by the task. So I think that you're doing what you need to do, right? But you can probably create a little bit better organization of ideas that might help out. And with the language use, maybe somewhat limited in the range of structures used, that might be a problem also. All right, so keep working. Now, I want you to try something out. I know this is going to sound crazy, but when you do one of your speaking practice tests, I want you to take 30 or 40 minutes. I want you to write this thing out, make sure it's completely organized, everything is exactly the way you want it to be to get 30 out of 30, and don't even record it yet. Practice it. Practice reading it out loud several times, right? And then send it to me for evaluation. Let's see if you can do better that way. Now, of course, you can't do this during the TOEFL exam, but if you practice like this, it can help you pay a little bit more attention to your language use and your delivery and your topic development, and then eventually these things will become automatic, right? And you won't have to take as much time, but take some extra time right now when you do some of the speaking practice tests.